I never imagined that the people who smiled at my wedding would one day become the reason I stopped smiling at my own reflection. This is my story, and I am not telling it for sympathy but for truth. My name is Anthony, and what my in-laws did to me slowly destroyed the life I worked so hard to build. From the outside, my marriage looked perfect, almost enviable to those who didn't know the reality behind closed doors. I married the man I loved, believing love would protect me from everything else. I didn't know that love alone is powerless when surrounded by manipulation and cruelty. The first warning came quietly, disguised as concern and advice that sounded harmless. My mother-in-law would correct my behavior with a smile that never reached her eyes. At the time, I mistook control for care and silence for respect. She decided how I dressed, how I spoke, and how often I visited my parents. If I resisted, she would sigh dramatically and tell everyone I was too sensitive. That was how my feelings were erased without anyone noticing. My father-in-law rarely spoke to me directly, but his silence was louder than words. He watched everything and said nothing, letting his authority hang in the air like a threat. I learned quickly that approval in that house was never meant for me. My husband stood between us, or at least I thought he did in the beginning. He promised things would improve and asked me to be patient just a little longer. Love made me believe patience was a virtue instead of a trap. Every mistake I made was magnified, remembered, and retold during family gatherings. If food lacked salt, it meant I was careless. If I spoke less, it meant I was arrogant. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like a home and started feeling like a courtroom. I was always on trial, always defending myself, always losing. No matter how hard I tried, the verdict was already decided. They began comparing me to other women, especially women I had never met. She does everything perfectly. My mother-in-law would say casually. Each comparison chipped away at my confidence until I barely recognized myself. When I tried to share my pain with my husband, he accused me of exaggerating. He said I was creating problems where none existed. That was the moment I realized I was alone, even in my marriage. I stopped calling my parents as often because I didn't want them to worry. I learned to cry silently at night, covering my face with a pillow. Pain became routine, like breathing. The control intensified after the first year of marriage. My phone was checked, my outings questioned, and my tone monitored. Privacy became a luxury I was not allowed to afford. Every decision had to be approved, even the smallest ones. If I acted independently, I was labeled disrespectful. Independence, I learned, was considered rebellion in that house. The emotional pressure started affecting my health. I lost weight, sleep, and the ability to feel joy. Even laughter felt like something I no longer deserved. When relatives visited, my in-laws became perfect hosts. They praised me in public and criticized me in private. That contrast made me doubt my own reality. Sometimes I wondered if I was imagining everything. Gaslighting has a way of making pain feel unreal. I questioned my sanity more than their behavior. My husband's silence slowly turned into agreement with them. He stopped defending me and started correcting me in front of others. Each correction felt like betrayal. I tried harder, hoping effort would earn acceptance. I cooked more, spoke less, and smiled even when it hurt. But nothing was ever enough. The day I overheard my mother-in-law blaming me for family tensions, something broke inside me. She said I had changed her son and ruined their peace. In that moment, I became the villain of a story I never wrote. I confronted my husband that night with tears I could no longer control. Instead of comfort, I received anger and accusations. He told me I was ungrateful and dramatic. That argument changed everything. The emotional distance between us turned into a wall. Love started feeling like a memory rather than a reality. I began to feel trapped, financially and emotionally dependent. Leaving seemed impossible, staying unbearable. Every day felt like a choice between dignity and survival. The house grew colder, even when no one raised their voice. Silence became their most effective weapon. It reminded me daily that I didn't belong. I started writing my thoughts in secret, just to stay sane. Those pages held the truth I couldn't speak aloud. They were the only place where I still existed. What hurt the most was realizing how slowly this happened. There was no single moment I could point to. My life wasn't destroyed overnight. It was dismantled piece by piece. I didn't know then that things were about to get worse. A decision was coming that would change everything. And once it happened, there would be no turning back. I remember the morning everything finally collapsed. Even though the house looked the same. No shouting, no chaos, just a strange calm that felt dangerous. That was the day I realized silence could be louder than cruelty. My mother-in-law stopped speaking to me entirely. She communicated through my husband, like I no longer deserved direct words. Being ignored felt worse than being insulted. My husband changed too, becoming colder and distant. He started coming home late and asking fewer questions. It felt like he was slowly exiting the marriage, while still living inside it. One evening, I was accused of something I never did. They claimed I had disrespected a relative during a phone call. No one asked for my side of the story. I tried explaining calmly, but explanations were no longer welcome. They had already decided I was guilty. Truth had no value in that house anymore. That night, my husband told me to apologize to keep the peace. He said it didn't matter who was right or wrong. Peace, apparently, was only possible if I erased myself. I refused for the first time. My voice shook, but I stood my ground. That refusal marked the beginning of the end. The next few days were unbearable. My every move was watched with suspicion. I was treated like an outsider living on borrowed time. They began talking about me when they thought I couldn't hear. Words like stubborn and problematic echoed through walls. Each word pushed me closer to breaking. My health declined rapidly after that. I suffered panic attacks I couldn't explain. My body reacted to the pain my mouth was forced to swallow. I begged my husband to choose us, to choose me. He said he was tired of choosing. That sentence shattered whatever hope I had left. One night, during another argument, he said something unforgettable. He told me his family would always come first. In that moment, I understood my position clearly. I stopped fighting after that. Not because I agreed, but because I was exhausted. Sometimes survival means conserving what little strength you have left. The final blow came unexpectedly. My mother-in-law suggested I go stay with my parents for a while. Her tone made it clear she didn't expect me back. My husband didn't object. He avoided my eyes as the words settled between us. His silence answered every question I was afraid to ask. Packing my bags felt unreal. I folded clothes with hands that felt numb. Each item felt like a piece of a life I failed to save. No one stopped me as I walked out. No goodbye, no apology, no explanation. Just a door closing behind me. When I reached my parents' home, I finally collapsed. For the first time in years, I cried without fear. My mother held me like she used to when I was a child. Healing didn't happen instantly. Some wounds were too deep for quick recovery, but distance gave me clarity I never had before. I replayed every moment in my mind, not to blame myself, but to understand. Understanding became my first step toward freedom. Weeks passed without a single call from my husband. The absence hurt, but it also spoke volumes. I was no longer waiting for someone who didn't choose me. Eventually, he called to discuss solutions. His solutions involved compromise that required my silence again. I realized nothing had changed. That was when I made the hardest decision of my life. I chose myself over a marriage built on suffering. I chose peace over approval. The separation wasn't easy. Society questioned me, relatives judged me, but for once their voices didn't control me. I started rebuilding my life slowly. New routines, new goals, new strength. Each small step felt like reclaiming stolen ground. Therapy helped me understand the abuse I normalized. It gave language to pain I never knew how to describe. Naming the damage made it less powerful. I learned that love should not cost your identity. Respect should not require endurance of pain. Marriage should not feel like imprisonment. Looking back, I no longer hate my in-laws. Hate would keep me tied to them emotionally. I choose indifference instead. My husband and I eventually divorced. The process was painful but necessary. Closure doesn't always come with apologies. Today, I am stronger than the girl who entered that house. I know my worth without needing permission. I carry scars, but they don't define me. My life was damaged, yes, but not destroyed beyond repair. Sometimes destruction clears space for rebuilding. Sometimes losing everything helps you find yourself. This is not just my story. It belongs to anyone who stayed too long in the name of patience. If you see yourself in my words, know that leaving is not failure. I survived what was meant to break me, and that survival is my victory.